Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Lester. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity, Strategy, Governance, and Architecture. Woo, that's a mouthful, right? For Emerson. Emerson is a global engineering manufacturing company that serves commercial and residential as well as industrial control space. We have currently about 32,000 wireless networks and about 26,000 device management systems, monitoring about 10 million devices globally out in the install base with our customers. So we have a little bit of experience in this area, and it hasn't happened overnight. It's been a long journey with our customers as well, and really bringing the IT and the OT organization and disciplines together to help create that digital transformation and really generate value out of those. Here are just as I mentioned, Emerson has two primary platforms. We have commercial and residential solutions, and Emerson Automation Solutions, and this is the automation solutions side, and these are the industries that we serve in. So you're familiar with that, I'm sure this touches just about everybody in the room. So what I really want to talk about and start with today is some common cybersecurity, and you'll see this built through the presentation. So we'll talk about a little bit about common cybersecurity challenges, and the tombstone on this slide says a lot that the $6 trillion annually by 2021 is the estimated cost of what cybersecurity incidents are going to cost the industry, globally. So to that end, we've got on the right-hand side, I'm using an example of the Bahrain Oil Company reported attack, and that's an example of a destructive type of an attack. And on the lower right-hand side, you'll see that we have an example of the incident that's more of a ransomware attack, which you're seeing more and more of these days. And so these are common throughout all of the industries, and no one's exempt from it. These are, as you've heard throughout the day, common challenges as we have throughout the industries. So I really want to talk a little bit about also, what's the difference between IoT and IoT, or industrial IoT and just Internet of Things. Is it the security devices? Is it the solutions? Is it the operational risk? What is the difference between these two? I would submit that, and I believe that this really is driven by the data and where the data lives and what you do with that data. It's really probably three domains: safety, control, and analytics. And if it's living in those domains, then it's more likely an IIoT than just an IoT type of solution. So one of the imperatives that we have through this, of course, is that we need to maintain safety and control of all of the systems when you do industrial Internet of Things solutions. So to that, starting with assessments, making sure your workforces are knowledgeable on the technologies, the processes, and the people, process, and technologies are up to par for the solutions that you implement. Kind of moving into what are the standards. You've heard a lot today about which standards are covering industrial Internet of Things. So I like to start with the 62443 series, or ISA/IEC 62443 series, and also the IEC 27001 series. But more than likely, it's going to be a combination of standards that you implement for industrial Internet of Things. And it really starts with, again, assessing what's within your architecture, what capabilities do you have in building out more of an engineered solution than just something that you buy and put in place. What are the regulatory requirements? And my intention is not to answer all of these questions, but kind of really probe and get the panel discussion going on later as well. So what are those regulatory requirements? There's a myriad of policymakers, whether at the state level, the local level, or the federal level, or the national level, that are working very hard and rigorously to try to keep up with the pace of change in the cybersecurity realm or the industrial space as it relates to industrial Internet of Things. they're not keeping pace. We know that. So what we really, look for is this, we're leaning on the standards to help drive what we're doing in this space so that we can have global, standards across the globe internationally, so that there's not as, so that it helps dissolve some of the confusion potential out in the industries for when you're implementing these, what regulations do I need to follow? These standards help normalize that because policymakers can't keep up with the change of pace. Moving into a little bit about, how do you accomplish industrial IoT cybersecurity? Looking at the differing goals between IoT and OT, they may vary. Most of the time they vary. We've seen some convergence, and we've seen some really good activities and collaboration around these spaces to make sure that the skill sets involved in getting industrial IoT enabled and provide value out to the business, that these stakeholders are involved. So, but from an engineered solution to a standardized implementation, that's typically the difference. In industrial IoT, you have more of an engineered solution, and more in the IT realm, you have standardized implementations that are very templated and can be deployed very readily. So who is accountable? Eric touched on this a little bit. Is it the CIO? Is it the CEO? Is it the CISO? Is it CDXO? Who is it? It's all of the above. And they're stakeholders, and really the recommendation is that you have to go through the organization and build a matrix of accountability and responsibility that equals the realms that type of a solution connects to. So not just in the industrial space or in the lower levels of the architecture, if you will, but also in the upper levels of the architecture, from the C-suite all the way down, from the cloud all the way down to the devices. You have to understand who's doing what, and more importantly, what happens if there's an incident? Who takes care of that? You have to have a well-documented plan and a practice plan in order to make sure that those roles and responsibilities equal the accountability that's apparent. So a little bit about collaboration among industry and policymakers. Again, there's a lot of activity in the industry, as you're aware, with whether it's IAC, whether it's ISA, whether it's NIST. There's a lot of collaboration going on. The business owners and the operators need to work with the policymakers in order to ensure that we're not overburdened with regulatory requirements, as well as that we get the standards in place that we need to make sure that we can secure the solutions that we need to, of course, attain our business goals. So a little bit of, accomplishing this. How do we accomplish industrial IoT securely? What security technologies can we use in a plant? It's a common question that we get. What thing do you have to sell me that's going to secure my plant? There isn't a thing. There's no magic bullet. It can be very complicated. It's typically too narrow of a thought process if you're looking for a thing. It's really about, again, people, processes, and technology. And you have to change all of that in order to get a real secure solution. So another question that we see often is, are new connections to my IoT will it lower our security posture of the plant? Not if it's done right. If you're doing, we talk about reference models, Purdue, ISA 99, Nomura, open process automation. There are lots of different reference architectures, but when it comes down to it, taking the engineered solution approach and making sure that you're protecting those devices and those processes that exist today that didn't have cybersecurity built into them many, many years ago, sometimes decades ago, and really protecting those in a purposeful approach, building it out through the architecture, and making sure that your zones and your conduits are well respected. You have very well defined lines. And really what we see is the most successful are flexible architectures that can support data movement to attain business objectives. And really, I think it was Rob Lee that back in 2015 in a SANS document represented a really good pyramid, or represented really well a graphic that says, The most investment you can make to attain cybersecurity is within architecture. It's the least expensive way to attain cybersecurity. So think about that when we talk about reference architectures as well. So I really want to just kind of culminate this, and kind of really goes back to what Eric was saying as well. You know, it's not a thing. Cybersecurity is not a thing. It is a commitment. It's a commitment from the organization. It's an investment strategy. And in order to attain this investment strategy, you have to think about the entire life cycle of when you implement something to when it's going to be sunset or deprecated or removed from service. So if you look at this, you know, this graphic, I mean, it's really about taking assessments, architecting and designing the right solutions, talk about the technology and the supply chain, looking at secure products and systems, build security in, or built security, and think about trusted execution systems or trusted execution environments. And that's what we really, I think, you know, at some point in the future, we'll see with whitelisting, with firewalls, with identities, the boundaries start to lock down, and you can really start to look and attain those trusted execution ecosystems where nothing happens unless it's intended to happen. And that is really how you start to attain the business objectives, but you really have to start that investment and make sure you take it to the level that it needs to be based on your business needs, because everyone's going to be different. Each operational facility is going to be different. So, you know, adjust, engineer, assess, and make it secure. And I think that's my last slide. Again, get the right expertise, look at the standards. They aren't necessarily easy to interpret, and it really does take cybersecurity expertise to attain the right secure solutions.